Hello, everybody, and welcome to this podcast. This is a brand new podcast, and we thought we'd just explain what this is about. So, this is the good, the bad, and the funny. And some of you might not know, but apart from my filmmaking and podcast stuff, what I've done for many years, I've helped support people with disabilities. And I currently work for a lady and look after her son, Lucas, who's in his 20. And Lucas has autism. Anyway, we got our heads together and we thought there isn't anything out there to support people in terms of families who've got people with disabilities or autism, whatever it may be. So we thought we'd set up a podcast to make a sort of a bit of forum so people can come on and talk about it, tell their stories. And I've got Marie with me here today. Welcome, Marie.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello
Anyway,
there.
Marie's going to help me co-host this, aren't you, Marie?
I am. We're going to steer you
stuff.
through, Andy.
I'm going to steer you through. You're going to steer me through?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Right, so let's start off with then. I've said a little bit about me. So obviously that's how we met, because we met a couple of, 2.5 years ago, is it?
I expect it is now, yeah. Yeah.
Must be about 2.5 years ago. And tell me your story. Tell me about you, because you've got a couple of boys, haven't you, with autism? Tell me about that.
I have. I've got two boys. One's 23 and my other son who you help support is 20. And I guess for me, it was a journey that started without any kind of understanding of what life would actually be like, raising these two amazing, slightly quirky young men into a society that kind of really doesn't get families like us. I mean, they try, but how could you until you've lived it? And I think, going on this, wanting to really support families, we don't get the kind of the pack that says, right, if this happens, you do this, if you need this, you get that. And services really aren't massively forthcoming with, supporting families with, financial needs, emotional needs, physical needs. So we kind of work together as a team, families like mine, in order to kind of normalise the everyday madness that is our wonderful children. And for me, I've always been really curious, because for many years my background was in the music industry, so I did have pretty colourful life before children, where I was very creative and got to meet loads of wonderful characters all over the world through the creation of me doing my music, which was great. So this was a big chapter, really, and you kind of don't really understand what these families kind of have to live with day in, day out. And a lot of it is like isolation, because, you're so involved with, getting exactly what your children need, to the point where it can put you in like a real bit of a, well, who am I, where am I, and what's my place right now? And I think for me, I wanted to kind of relate to other families. Because there is more than this. There is the good, the bad, and the funny, and I think if you completely go down the route of allowing, what we've kind of, the hand we've been dealt with, without kind of making, what is your testimony, what is your journey on this path, really, because they are valued and they are really interesting as well. And a lot of families like me, I'm at home at the minute, I work a full-time job, but I also, don't have the opportunity to go out of an evening and socialise because my other son needs me. So I think, podcasts are a great way of kind of pulling in, especially what I call the forgotten families, where, we just kind of sit at home, get on with it. We can't go out and meet up with friends when we want and do things like that. Not that it's a bad thing, and I don't think it, I'm like, oh, woe is me, because I've learned to really enjoy my space. But it must be quite isolating for families that are just coming into this kind of diagnosis with their kids. Because I know it was tricky for me in the beginning, but so we just want to create like a space where lived experiences can come in, and just have a social where they can tell us about their experiences and also laugh about their experiences. Because believe you me, and my children, there's definitely lots of funny moments.
There is, and I mean, you said about families. Obviously, I've not got children with disabilities. My eldest got ADHD, but I mean, it's sort of disabilities that can be quite, difficult in terms of how they progress in life or things like that, or cause family upset or issues that way. So for me, I've obviously I've only worked in that environment for the last sort of 10, 12 years. It's much more different or difficult for people like yourself that have got it 24/7, haven't you?
Yeah, no, well, we do have it 24/7, but I think, for me, I was that my firstborn was, severely, it turns out to be quite severely autistic, limited communication verbally, lots of sensory issues, but I never knew any different. So really, I've never really missed out on anything, or if you feel that you're going to miss out on something of having whatever normal is, that's just always been what my parenting life has always been. And I panicked a little bit when I was younger because it was quite a lot. I was in my 20s, 23 and 27 when I had the boys. But I think now I'm in my 40s, I've learned to I call it ride the waves of autism as if I'm surfing. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, sometimes we're going to crash out, but we'll always get back on that board and ride the next wave. And I think that's just a kind of a good analogy to make you get up and kind of just value what you've got with the kids, because they are great teachers. That's another thing as well. I don't think I'd have learned and to be who I am today without their challenges, really, and me wanting to almost make it better, and make their lives a lot easier. And it was a challenge, but it was a challenge I was able to overcome. And
Yeah,
help
yeah.
other parents as well. I'm able to say, oh no, this is a good way to go for this, and be through my advice that parents have given me. So it is very much a community that needs little outlets where we can kind of come together and feed into what is a web of complexities to get our children the basic rights, really, of living.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it can be quite isolating, can't it? Obviously, if, like yourself, you've got two children that are disabled, sometimes it's difficult to have that opportunity to mix with other families that perhaps got, should we say, normal children, for the better word. um, and yeah, just it makes that ability to be able to mix with those people sometimes more difficult, just purely for the fact that you have other things that you really have to make sure that are in place, especially with autism, for example. If you've got young people that have got certain ways that they need to keep in, certain routines that they need to keep in. So that makes it more difficult. But then you've obviously got families as well that perhaps may have had children that didn't have a disability, and then they have a third child or whatever that has a disability, and they've then got to mix those with the children that haven't got those disabilities, and that throws up difficulties as well, doesn't it?
And these are incredible families, really, because you, like I said, you don't expect this. You don't think, I'm going to have a child, and it's you go on this journey. But the families, that really navigate this and have given these children, these beautiful, special children, they are incredible. I know many, many people fortunately through my journey, where these are warriors, these parents, loving, kind warriors. Yes, they get stressed and it's all a bit too much, at times, but that's a natural thing for somebody that constantly gives, without wanting back, really. So, it's a great community. It's a community that unfortunately we never wanted to be a part of, but we are a part of this community, and our children have just given us so many kind of blessings and lessons and wonderful experiences. And you've just got to take that, I think, rather than looking at you know, for many years when in the beginning you go, oh my goodness, you know, I never planned this and I don't know what to do, but you grow into it and you learn to be more tolerant and you just learn to be a more patient parent, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and there isn't an instruction manual, is there, for this at all? It's
I mean, is
they
there
said
for
there's
any
not an.
kid? Did you
Sorry.
get one? Did you get one with your kids? I said, is there for any kid?
Well,
Can you
there isn't.
imagine
Look,
it?
I was just going to say that. Yeah, there isn't an instruction manual for kids at all, is there? Bringing kids up, but
No,
even
gosh.
more so for when there are, when there are more difficulties, and that they need more support that perhaps other children might need. So there's definitely no instruction manual for that. And like us, they're very unique, aren't they?
Yeah,
They have their own quirks, like we have our own quirks.
yeah, yeah. No. And, you know, for me, you know, I was, you know, pretty kind of fortunate to be able to like really focus on the children. Um, but I guess nowadays it's a little, you know, there's lots going on, you know, uncertainties with like what they're going to be doing with these EHCPs for the kids, and you hear little snippets of change. And I often wonder, you know, with the cost of living crisis, because when I brought my children, obviously they're 23 and 21 now, nearly. You know, the cost of living, you know, your electricity wasn't too high, you know, your food wasn't too bad, the shopping, you know, the prices and everything. And I often think now, like, how is it for a family that can't work, and you literally can't work when you've got, you know, quite a disabled family? You can't send them out to your average nursery. They can't cope. They have to have a one-to-one. And if you've got multiple children with neurodiverse, it's very difficult unless you can kind of do, you know, online job of a night where you can grab a couple of hours here and there. Absolutely tired. It's a lot. So I often wonder, you know, I do think there's a lot more pressure on people now than actually when I was bringing my children up from young through the diagnosis, just through the costs and things like that. So, you know, but there are things out there, and that's another thing as well. You know, there are, you know, schemes out there that do offer families a help, but they just don't know about them. It's not broadcast enough to sort of go, oh, I can get this discount, and I can get that, I can get help with this. It's almost like, I don't know, it's just not advertised enough to make it more of a benefit to these families that are struggling, I think. So, you know, I'd like to kind of do like a bit of a, you know, go in depth a bit more about what services are available for extra help for low incomes if you can't work at the moment, you know, because your kid's not being placed in a school because the school can't meet their needs. You know, there's lots of different complexities, really. And I know recently there was a brilliant thing with the Send team. They went and put a pair of shoes outside the local authorities building. So we were obviously in Devon. So they did it at Devon County, and there was just loads of shoes about for every child that's been failed. And I thought that was so
Right.
beautiful and symbolic. You know, so we are kind of fighting for our kids, but why should we? Why should we have to fight so hard?
Yeah, I understand that, I suppose, but the biggest advocate for your children is always going to be the parent, is or the guardian. It's the local authorities or the organisations that might try and support. You're still going to be the biggest advocate, aren't you?
Oh, of course.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I just mean, you know, it's not about the fight. It's like when, I mean, the thing is, Andy, when you see parents, you know, and I have done, you know, these moments, and you know, I'm okay at the minute because my children are not in the education. You know, I've got them what they need, and it's okay. I could go on my little merry road and just be like, right, I've done all of that for the last 20 years. I'm okay. But I think it's really important that people that have got older children that have been through these life experiences can offer a bit of support to the newer families that are coming up, with just advice. We've just, you know, we've kind of got out a little bit the other end. Life isn't perfect, but it's much better. It's easier. We've got this. because it is, I could just be, well, I'm all right, you know,
Yeah,
after all those
yeah,
years. But I think we have to acknowledge, and celebrate also. I think, the way that, you do a lot of work with my youngest son around his documentary, and you give him purpose and he's valued, and he does, bits with your movies, that he does your starring. And these are really, really empowering things. And you see how elated he is. I mean, I think he's watched your Diamond Dogs now. We've all watched it. The whole family's going, come on, let's sit down and watch, and the prequel. Nowhere
yeah.
Man. We've got it. But that was started. When you first started, it was quite challenging, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, but things are challenging, aren't they? A
Oh
case
yeah.
of It's just a case of sort of going with the flow and
Mm,
being a bit flexible in terms of your approach to things, and reading the situation as well as you can, and using your experience and your maturity
mm,
to sort of overcome those things. I mean, like I said, I sort of, I didn't fall into this, but I got into working with people with disabilities back probably, oh, it must be 10, 12 years ago now. It was a job for Autism Anglia in Dereham in Norfolk, and I applied for this job, and it said assistant instructor. And I think I'd looked at doing some teaching. I decided not to do teaching. I thought, oh, it's assistant instructor. Yeah, read the job spec and went along, and it was nothing like the job spec. Not
yeah.
really. It was far more challenging than the job spec, and obviously in terms of instructing, it wasn't really instructing. There was a lot more support than there was instructing. But and I'm not. It wasn't easy. I mean, if I look back to when I was, I'm going off the tangent a bit here, but when I look back to when I was sort of 17, I think it was 17, I was at college, and I had to do a work placement. We had to do a work placement, and I did one for 2 weeks, and I did it with a group of people with disabilities. Don't ask me why. I've no idea why. I've no idea why. I just did. I was on a sports and recreation course. Did it with people with disabilities. I was there for about a week, and I used to be scared. It was weird as a young man, because I was naive. I used to be almost scared of people with disabilities because they look different, or they walk different, or whatever, or they look. Do you know what I mean? Almost like I had this sort of mentality that they're almost like zombie-like in a funny sort of way, which is obviously completely wrong. But that was just me not understanding at such a young
Mm,
age.
mm,
And one lady that stood out was she couldn't talk, and she she couldn't really communicate. She communicated with a board which just had letters from A to Z on it, and all she would do is look at the board, and I'd have to choose a letter, and if I chose the right letter, she would look me straight in the eye, and I'll never forget that. And like you say, I never did anything with people with disabilities. And obviously, then I fell into it when I went with Autism Anglia. Then obviously, I've stuck with it, and then ended up working with people with autism and some other disabilities as well. When I worked for a company called Nancer in Norwich. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm sort of lost track a little bit, but it, yeah, it can be difficult, but it's so rewarding in many ways,
mm.
and it's little stages. I think is obviously for you and me, for people that we can go out and get a job, and we find life fairly easy, and we haven't got those difficulties.
Yeah.
Making progress or making steps are much larger, and I think many people that don't understand probably expect that, or can't understand why somebody can't do that with a disability. But that is many ways the part of the problem, isn't it? That they are small steps, but they are big steps for them, and
Yes.
sometimes we miss that. We miss that,
Yeah.
and I suppose it just takes patience, really. Patience is probably the right word, but it takes patience and resilience, and just trying to move these people forward so that they're happy. I mean, the main thing is they're happy, and that they have as fulfilling life as possible. It might not be our life, but doesn't mean it's not fulfilling.
Oh
Um,
goodness, no. And I mean, I think that's the thing. This is what, why I advocate so much for disabled people. It's we try to, especially when they get into adults, obviously minor adults, and they say, well, no, that how many times have you had like too many coffees, and you thought, well, I'm not having any more coffees. I've had far too many. But you've learnt that by having too many coffees. A lot of time
Yeah.
within, disabled people's lives, especially when they're having care, you have what's called the best of interest. Now, I'm all for best of interest, absolutely. But I also think that positive risk taking for our disabled people, so they actually get an emotional feeling about doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable, as long as it's not risk to life or hospitalisation thing. We've got to take positive risks. We can't treat them as whiter than white in life. It does
No.
frustrate me. I want my child to experience things, as long as I can risk assess it with his team, that he's, not going to come to any significant harm or real harm, then why shouldn't we take a risk? He's a human being that needs to experience life. Just because he struggles to communicate doesn't mean he struggles to feel and want and need that free life, and I'm passionate about that, because I think we shouldn't be so mollycoddly with our disabled people. Absolutely when there's care involved, but life's got to be fun. It's got to be explored. And I think positive risk taking is so empowering.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because I've had this conversation with people before that, when we're children, think about when you're a
Mm,
child, we take risks and we do things and we
mm,
test things and we get things wrong and we learn. When we can become adults, and if you think about it, as adults, we are protecting children with disabilities. We
mm,
almost take our own mindset and forget that when we were children, we took risks and things, and as
mm,
long as we were safe,
mm,
but that's how we learn and that's how they can learn.
yeah.
So, yeah, we certainly have to look at it from
I mean,
their
I
point of
loved
view.
riding on my bike, and forever, like coming off, I'd literally be picking out gravel from my knees and hobbling back and going, "Oh, mum, mum, gonna be all right, and be all right, give it a bit of, get the flannel on it," and you'd be like, but like now you're like, "Oh, careful, careful, the kid." It's like he hasn't even done anything yet, and I think, my greatest experiences was like roller skating on my bike, like doing crazy kind of fun things that you know, that were kid like, But I'm thinking, in adult life, it's like when they're in care, when they rely on a lot of care, and it can kind of be so routine and structured. Whereas actually, my oldest son, although he likes things done, he's so unstructured, yet he's really complex. And it's like you'll go, okay, he wants to do that routine, and as soon as you write in his care plan that he likes that routine, we all agree, yep, he wants his coffee in the morning before he watches TV, blah blah blah, decaf, whatever, because he will be on the espresso machine. Um, but he's, he sometimes he'll then just want to go like, actually no, I just want to go and watch TV in the lounge and just chill out for a bit. And so you've got to be really flexible, because I might do something different in the morning. I'm not going to do the same thing every morning. I just don't do it. And just because
Mm.
people have autism, not everyone with autism, like my youngest son, he's very structured. Like he's to the T, boom, boom, boom. And if he doesn't work, he's got to restart the whole lot.
Yeah,
Whereas my oldest son, he's more severe, but he's a lot more amenable.
yeah. But even your youngest Lucas, even he can divert away with a little bit of
Yeah.
tenderness and a little bit of the
Yeah.
right sort of direction. He can
He's
do
so
that,
funny,
and
isn't he really, I think he just makes it comical. And even when he's, guys, I'm stressed. And it's like, but it's still there, isn't it? You have to be like, okay, Lucas. But he's so expressional, isn't he? And I'm grateful
yeah,
for that, because he teaches me about his brother. Because his brother was like getting really stressed out with his phone around these stupid, apparently these YouTube short things. They're
yeah,
not full
yes, yes,
videos. And
yeah,
and Lucas was able to sit down and he went, Mum, you don't get it. YouTube used to be full length videos. Now they want to be like TikTok, and he'll go into it. And now all you can see is shorts after shorts, and autistic people hate it. And it just made me realise, oh my God, Enrico was throwing his phone because he was watching these YouTube shorts. And his brother kind of was able to say, Mom, they're so autistic friendly. Like, you just get into the video and then it stops. But it's a great way. Like, even though they're not very close, I actually use Lucas and the way he expresses himself when he. Another funny one. I've got to get used to the environment. Remember, like he's lived
yeah,
in this house for 19 years, He went away to a caravan for a little break with you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Came back. He needed 48 hours to get used to the environment, which I thought was so funny. Like, but the way he explains it is beautiful, you know. And you can say, but Lucas, you've lived here for like 19 years. Yep, but I've been there and then I had to come back into here. So he just explains that thing where lots of people with autism have that transitional wobble, you know, where going from one place to another or one activity to another, we take it so for granted. But really kind of like they have to get used to different noises, smells, spatial awareness. And yeah, they're quite incredible. I absolutely admire and love, you know, the good bits in their brain and how they think. When I see the distress bits, I think, wow, that must be really difficult, you know.
And yeah, and he knows, doesn't he? He knows that, and it's quite funny when he says, he'll say to me, I don't get jokes," and he does get jokes.
So
Most of the time, he doesn't, but he does get jokes. It's just because he's teasing me, isn't he?
yeah,
Teases
yeah.
me
Well,
with jokes.
it depends on the mood, you know. He's dependent on
It
the
does.
mood,
It
really,
does.
Lou, isn't it? If he's in a good mood, then he can have a joke. If he's not and he's in a serious mood, he's autistic, he can't have a joke, you know.
But I suppose we're the same, really, aren't we? If we're tired or we're not in the best mood, then we're probably the same as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're. But I think, you know, for me, it's like, what is, you know, how do parents cope these days? You know, is there like more, like back in the day? Is there more support with like groups and stuff? Do parents go to groups anymore? Because I found that really difficult. I didn't want to go to a group when the kids were little. I don't know why. I just didn't feel. And there were lovely people in this group. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to sit there and kind of be in that group. Is that bad?
Not at all. Whatever works for you. I
Well, I
think
think.
perhaps you didn't want to be pigeonholed as such.
Well, I didn't know. I guess because it was. I mean, it was when I was. It was only when I was kind of, the boys were newly diagnosed and they were young. But I just felt like it wasn't my. I don't know. It was like, well, is this where? Is this my place? You know, I don't know. Do we? You know, I have to think when the kids were younger as well. I think you don't, because they're young and they're playful, you think, oh, they're not going to be as severe as they are when they're adults. But then when they do get older and older, it becomes more apparent that actually, you know, they were kind of like just cute. And if they would have like a sensory overload, I'd be able to pick them up and go, come on, let's move you to a different environment so easily. No one else having to help me. Whereas now, you know, you have to have, you know, have support workers to help with the children. You know, because, you know, obviously with you, but with my other son, I have a 3-to-1 who can be quite, you know, get quite upset.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but it's magical, really. I don't think I would ever not do this again. I think it's been the most beautiful learning experience. I think it's one of the, if you say, you know, you're going to go to Earth and feel all these emotions, I've definitely been on a roller coaster of emotions, from angry, scared, frightened, happy, sad, you know, everything I've explored. And it's thanks to the boys, really, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think coming back to when you said about the groups, probably because you were still going through a development process there yourself, weren't you?
I
You were
think so.
sort of learning as you go along, so you weren't sure whether that fitted with you, because was that what you should be doing? And you were probably learning just as much as they were.
Oh, totally. Like I said, there's some really nice, welcoming people there, but I didn't feel it was my place at that time. I couldn't quite settle into that yet. I was a bit like, well, yeah, you know, it's a disabled group. I kind of, you don't really fully accept it like straight away. But in the beginning, they go, "I'll go to this group and go to that group." But you're just kind of like thinking, well, what is autism? What is learning disabilities? What is Down syndrome? You know, whatever. I mean, Down syndrome and things like that is. You know, I think they're the most wonderful, fun. The only I've met a couple of people with kids with Down syndrome, and they're just so much fun. You know, they're just the beaming smiles, and I think that's, you know, with my sons, their smile says everything. They may not talk much, but when they're happy, that smile is worth so much. But yeah.
How have things sort of changed? I don't know, whether you can sort of generalise this or not. How have things changed in the last sort of 20 years in terms of outside support for? I suppose it depends on the age of the children, does it? As they get to an
Well,
adult, I suppose less support is there?
I don't know. I mean, when my children were younger, they kind of, it was that kind of era where they said, "Oh, we're not going to invest in early years development." And then I think recently, or about the last sort of 5 to maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years, they've gone, "Oh no, we should invest in early, you know, early interventions to support people, you know, more whatever, wraparound support to cope with speech and language, you know, school provision support." But I don't see that, because I've always had an issue with the way that the EHCPs have ran. Because I used to have it as an education plan way back before the EHCs come in with mine. And they are, you know, if you've got a local authority that is good at writing them for a start off with, or will, you've got a good Senko at a school that will write these EHCPs, then theoretically, and you put in the provisions in the right, boxes within this EHCP, so you are guaranteed to get it, sort of. They don't actually work out like that. They're not actually. I mean, I've taken to tribunal. I've done all sorts. They never maintain it, and I've always felt that, you know, that's a wasted. Especially now, how much I get, you know, this spent in adult services, because they haven't had the right support in the early years. Because that's where I, you know, sort of work in the adult sort of services, you know, sort of ether, if you like. And I just think it's a wasted opportunity, really. It really is, because I don't think we'd have so many people in adult services that were so underdeveloped to their potential, if I'm honest, you know, because they've been failed by provisions, and it's not necessarily. I mean, it is about being a well-led provision. You know, you've got to have a good Senko, you've got to have a good head teacher. Those are the ones that are really passionate about, you know, being really sensible with their funding in order to support every child.
Yeah.
Not easy at all. I'm not digging at anybody, because it's not something that I, you know, would understand the full workings of. But I just think there's missed opportunity here with actually getting it while they're in school, getting the right provision straight, being a bit more understanding, and providing reasonable adjustments to our our pupils that do require that additional support. You know, going through learning in their interests, to get them to develop their skills around English, maths, you know, whatever they're going to need to kind of have a kind of functional, independent life when they're adults. But we still want to give the one size fits all, even with this different EHCP that say something, but there's not the provisions that could actually run each one holistically. So I think we're always going to struggle if we don't. And I think not just with special needs, I think we're under developing all of our children with the education system at the minute. You know, and it has been really poor since COVID, because, you know, I think these kids didn't even get any education at that age. So I think, you know, we need to invest a bit more. And I think that would support families. I think it would have a knock-on effect if we weren't, you know, we kind of focused on the early years, really, where I didn't really have that opportunity, and now we're kind of had lots of failed educational breakdowns, and ended up now in such a high level care package, really, because, you know, it's just been so traumatic for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Hopefully we can get a few people to come on here and talk about their stories, and hopefully this will make them feel a bit less isolated, and perhaps be able to talk about their own personal experiences, give a bit of knowledge out to people that want to listen, and share some of those funny stories. That's the whole idea of this at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and you know, our goal is as well, you know, to get a few people on, so where we can and then have a community where we can pass on these different ideas. And maybe have, because it's online, you can meet people from all over. You don't necessarily all need to live in the same area to find new people that you connect with, really. But yes, let's see what we can do, and maybe get some people on that have, once we get a few ideas away, what people need that support in, then looking at people that are experts in that have lived experience, because obviously this is a lived experience podcast.
It is. Yeah, yeah. I mean, technically, I suppose people, you're a specialised, or what's it called, by experience?
I'm an
I
expert
forgot
by
what
experience, yeah, but
expert by experience. Yeah, you're an
yeah.
expert by experience. I suppose technically, am I an expert by experience? Probably.
I think absolutely, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, ADHD is also quite, it's quite, it's still a challenge that your child faces, that you have to support. You want to protect them a little bit more. And I think, it's about that, that having that real kind of deep connection for our community, regardless whether it's your children or your nephew or your grandson, or, it's not about you having to be living with it. It's if you care for somebody and you want to, and it's going to hurt you when things don't go right for them, or you see a family member struggle. It's just, this is an opportunity for everybody, rather than, I don't want just sort of people on there that sort of come in and go, well, I've sat and done 30 years of university and I've never actually had a child for more than 24 hours in my presence. And although they're very good and they offer the scientific kind of research behind that, like you ain't never going to do it until you've done 24, 48, 7 days a week, 365 days, or seen a loved one, sort of going through that. So it's quite an experience. It's a unique experience, but it's seems to be growing more and more so. And I just don't want people to feel that they're not valued. They're not they're not on their own. There is people out there like us that have ended up doing 23 years and actually coming out like this. Crazy, but
Yes.
happy, and yeah.
It's like people working on the coalface, so to speak, isn't it? I suppose is an analogy of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And when we talk about children, we don't necessarily talk about children age, if you like, under 18. We're talking about everybody, because
Oh, well,
you could be
they're
18
always your
and have a child.
children.
Yeah, you could be 18, you can have a child of 60, couldn't you?
Yeah.
The disability doesn't go away, does it? It doesn't go away when
And
you reach
actually,
50 and something stops. So.
I would quite like to hear from the older generation, because I can say it from me, we can look at the younger generation, but actually what's it like for, for someone that's done it for many, many years, and, imagine the wealth of knowledge and the good, the bad, and the funny that they could kind of tap into. It's like you say, it's wise, isn't it? We like to learn from each other, and I think not many of us we talk to each other about it because we've got that understanding. But when a friend says to me, like, "Oh, how are you?" and I've had a really bad week, I go, "Yeah, I'm fine." What did you say?
Well, what do you say? Yeah, I've had a shit week. You're
Well,
not going to
you
say that,
could
are
do, but they might want you to elaborate on that, and it's literal for me, isn't it? It
you?
is.
Yeah.
Do you really want to know? But that's the thing, innit? You tend to almost be a little bit like, yeah, everything's great, wonderful, fine. And really, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Where's the wine?
Yeah, exactly. Or the chihuahua, in my case.
Yeah, you've got a chihuahua.
Where's the chihuahua?
I'll tell you what I'd like to hear from as well. I'd like to hear from people that aren't necessarily in the UK, because we may learn things from them, may we?
Yeah, that'd be great. What techniques, is there anything that they're finding really useful? Yeah, brilliant. That'd be, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Because we're all with different cultures as well. I've been looking into, I think it's Japan, what they're doing with autism as well. And that seems really, really kind of productive and kind of focused on really supporting them, especially around this whole reasonable adjustments, really recognizing that, we can't just go in and do scary things with our people that get confused. We've got to, be a bit more approachable. And, Paula McGowan is a great, leader in that, isn't she? Unfortunately, God bless Oliver, his life has he's not here anymore, but his legacy from his mum and his dad, and actually how that is really impacting. And I know that my son's team do the we do the Oliver McGowan training, but once a year I'll bring that in even more. Our risk assessments are about staff understanding that reasonable adjustments must be applied. If someone comes to my son's house, my son isn't happy, there's a risk assessment there. I'm sorry, you're going to leave. He's not come back another day, and they're really confident in that, and they really will speak up for him now. Whereas before, it was like, oh no, the repair guy's here, and Riku doesn't really want it, and blah blah blah. Now they're like, no, sorry, it's 8:30, you can't come, and I love it. It's like really empowering, So it is really catching on. With absolute pioneers of pushing through, law and things like that, and through parents and people with autism and learning disabilities that they're able to speak out. It's there's a powerful community here, but I still think that there's more that we can do to join up as a community. And I think these new podcasts, because I'm a bit old, and so are you really. I'm a bit old, but these podcasts are a great way for people to connect.
I might be old, but I know how to put WhatsApp onto
You're
my
actually
computer.
really good. I'm actually a little bit younger than you, but I haven't got a clue. I'm like, he's like, WhatsApp. Can you get WhatsApp on your computer? Can you?
Yes.
I'm learning.
Yeah, you're learning.
Brilliant.
Okay, well that's great. So we want to get people on here, don't we? So what would you say to somebody who wants to get somebody on here? What would you say to get them on here?
Well, I guess at the minute, it's always like, for me, like when we said about this, I was a bit nervous because I'm not really like a in the camera kind of person and sat there. But actually, I've really enjoyed myself this evening. I'd be sat at home probably going over some paperwork or something. But it's been quite nice to talk about, something that's I'm really passionate about, and that's my family, and that's, my journey really with my beautiful boys.
No,
So
that's good. That's good. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Well, no, I just think we just love to hear from other people. I find it fascinating that there's other Maries out there that's probably sat down and got loads of different things that that they can share and just no outlet really.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's easy. It'll take if you come on, it'll take you 30 minutes, an hour maximum. Come and have a chat, say what you want to say, learn what you want to learn, laugh about what you want to laugh about, and what could be better than that? And actually, in some ways, there's a bit of me time for those people that are, that I've got children or adults or siblings with disabilities.
Exactly. And I think, at the minute, obviously, this is our just sort of first introduction. And I think, I want to really, I've got so many funny, I don't know how PG we need to be, funny stories. And I think, yeah,
no,
that's good because, there's stuff on there that you just couldn't even make it up, but it's just like, yeah, very funny. And I think that's what I want to direct it to a little bit. I think, it is serious. It is, it can be quite challenging in our life, but oh my goodness, the amount of funny times that your kids do, and it's just priceless. So I think we want to always focus, on having that kind of journey where we always do something fun. It's got to have that fun element in there. Otherwise, you can just be too serious in life. Life's a journey. It's an experience, and our experience just has a few more twists and turns.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we do that anyway. We do that. I mean, if we do something silly as an adult, like now, you might look back at something you did, and at the time it might have been quite stressful. But then you look back, and then you laugh about it. You can laugh about it now, can't you? And at the ridiculousness of it. So it's the same thing, isn't it? It's nothing more than that. It's the same thing.
Yes, yeah. And you never know. Lucas might join us for a few bits.
Yeah, that'd be good.
He probably will.
He probably will. Right, that's fantastic. Well, okay. Anyway, guys, we hope you liked our first podcast. Please, if you want to come on, give us a shout. We'd love to have you on. And hopefully we will see you again soon. Bye for now.
Super.